From MTN News, this is Montana This Morning.
Domestic violence. Hear from a survivor as she tells her story and learn how you can help. Coming up.
An avalanche season already here in Montana and the warm fall weather affecting the slopes. Coming up, learn what you need to watch out for. Now we'll have that story in just a moment. Meantime, it's right at 6:31. Chet Lehman and Matt Elwell with you here.
Yeah.
With those temperatures outside right now and not a lot of white in the slopes, it's hard to think about avalanche
Yeah,
season.
but it's here. There are people have been out in the backcountry, and coming up here in just a few minutes, we're going to talk about some of the concerns. I'll look back at last year and the new push for the Avalanche Center
We
here
look forward
in
to that.
Southwest Montana. Temperatures very warm this morning, even into the valleys, 20s, upper 20s at that, 40s in some cases. Anna's sitting at 44. It is going to be a nice afternoon. Daytime highs back above average. We are seeing some showers showing up on our future cast as you go through the day. It doesn't look like it's going to be overall heavy, but you notice there's some snow falling in some of those graphics, especially as you get into the evening in some of the mountains. Our daytime highs into the 60s. It will be a little windy. Of course, that is a concern if you're going to be outside today. You'll probably want to keep those light coats, heavy jackets as you're going out when you factor in the wind. We're going to talk about the rain showers and much more, of course, coming up in just a few minutes.
All right, thank you, Matt. 6:32 now. New information surfacing about gun violence and domestic abuse in Montana. MTN's Jane McDonald begins a two-part series. This morning, we hear from a survivor and learn how you can be on the lookout for your loved ones.
Domestic violence here in our community happening just behind closed doors.
What I've survived emotional, physical, verbal, sexual abuse.
1 in 5 people will experience intimate partner violence at some point in their lifetime.
That's over 200,000 people in Montana will experience domestic violence. In Gallatin County, that comes out to 24,000 people.
People were in the early days of the pandemic and still often throughout this whole experience, were told that staying at home was the safest place to be. But for too many people, home is not a safe place.
Last year, Haven worked with nearly 1,100 members of our community who experienced intimate partner violence. This issue is not a big city issue. It's here, it's happening, and now new information of how guns may play a role.
We know that in Montana, 3 out of 4 intimate partner violence homicides will be caused by the use of a gun. And we know that the only way we're going to decrease those numbers is if we get the whole community talking about it, if we get community ownership of this issue.
So what can you do if you notice a family or friend's partner belittle, become physical, or even dehumanize them? These are all signs that there may be a deeper issue at hand.
This is absolutely a serious issue that's happening locally, and we would love to get the entire community involved in ending it.
I'm a tough woman. I am strong and I state my opinions and I am not afraid of them. But I never thought that somebody would abuse me because of them.
Cassie is going to share her story with us, and though her abuser did not turn a gun on her, he did use it as a form of manipulation. In Bozeman, Jane McDonald, MTN News.
And we will continue that series tomorrow right here on Montana This Morning. 6:34 now. Not only are there 2 chances to become a millionaire in this year's Montana Millionaire Raffle drawing, if you want to take part, you better move fast. As of this morning, fewer than 141,000 tickets remain. MTN's Janelle Slade picks up the story.
We really can't explain what's happening.
The team at Montana Lottery is perplexed, blown away.
We really did have to reset the XY axis on our sales chart to make it fit on one page. Like what happened from last year to this year just was like so far above what we were expecting.
A 613% increase in day one sales, and it's not slowing down.
We don't know how to approach this either. Not even our mathematicians know exactly what to do right now.
Montana Lottery did make some major changes this year. It's selling 70,000 more tickets than it did last year, but it's also drawing 2 $1 million winners.
So the odds are, 1 in 125,000 of winning $1 million.
The state also eliminated some mid-level cash prizes and ramped up its instant wins, making for more opportunity to win $100 or $500 on the spot.
So you'll hear a little ding, 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 You can just go cash it right where you are and walk out with the money.
More people can join in on the fun this way.
Way more. And we haven't even got our entire ad campaign rolling yet.
Let's wear blue pajamas for musical chairs this year?
There's going to be 2 Montana millionaires this year.
You heard right.
In Billings, Janelle Slade, MTN News.
All right, 6:36. Since March of 2020, the U.S. land borders with Mexico and Canada have remained closed to non-essential travel because of COVID. It all changes on Monday when the U.S. fully reopens those border crossings to vaccinated visitors. Maya Rodriguez traveled to the border between Washington State and British Columbia, Canada, to see how they've been faring.
In between 2 border checkpoints for 2 nations sits one monument. This is the Peace Arch.
The park is a solace. It's a refuge.
Inscribed at the top, the words, "Children of a Common Mother," a reminder of the close ties between the U.S. and Canada. Ties that also bind the people here.
My dad was from England. My mom was from Vancouver, BC. They came to America to raise their babies. And I arrived when I was 3 days old. Been here ever since.
Christina Winkler is president of the International Peace Arch Association and lives in Blaine, Washington, right near the border. For her and many here, COVID wreaked havoc on the land border crossing and their lives.
What we have been through with the border closure and these families is really unimaginable.
Neither could those whose business is the border.
It was so heavily restricted that it was closed to the vast majority of people that would typically cross it.
Lori Trautman is director of the Border Policy Research Institute at Western Washington University. She says border communities on the U.S. side, which tend to be smaller and more rural and rely heavily on Canadian visitors, have been hit hard.
It was pretty staggering, especially things like the gas tax. Communities here that are adjacent to the border can put in an additional fuel tax, and that really drew on Canadians who would come over and fill up their tanks when they were going shopping.
But worse, she said, was the feeling that border communities felt ignored by both the U.S. and Canadian governments.
I don't think that people in borderland communities were really heard by either administration, and particularly by the White House. We need a land border. That's how we're tied together, and that's how we've evolved together.
But amid all the restrictions at the border, something unexpected happened back at Peace Arch Park. A renewed purpose. Because of its unusual location, spanning both sides of the border, it's become a place where people can come in from both countries and meet one another freely, as long as they don't venture beyond the park's borders.
I have been brought to tears many times. I have seen people see their grandbabies for the first time after a year and a half.
All because of a park with a special arch, celebrating its 100th anniversary this year. Its builders came back from World War I and survived the Spanish flu pandemic, finally finishing the arch in 1921, and leaving behind one last message. May these gates never be closed.
So if they can go through a war and a pandemic and come home and survive tough times and leave us, their children, a beautiful gift like this, I think it's a great place for us to start.
The hope here now is that any step towards normalcy is a step in the right direction so that these gates can remain open for a century more and beyond. Along the USCanada border near Blaine, Washington, I'm Maya Rodriguez.
Good morning. I'm joined by Doug Chabot from the Gallatin National Forest Avalanche Center. It seems early, not only in the day, but also in the season to be talking avalanches, but we've got white in the mountains already.
It's actually not too early, because of that. We have snow in the mountains. People have actually been out skiing already. And so we want to kind of tune ourselves up to be safe out there.
Yeah, and we look back to last year, weak snowpack. It was a nasty avalanche season for us in southwest Montana, and not only in southwest Montana, but across the U.S.
Last winter in the U.S., we set records for avalanche fatalities. 37 people died. Here in southwest Montana, we had 1 fatality, and we had 53 avalanche incidents where people triggered avalanches they were unintentional, kind of caught them by surprise. So a lot of people were getting lucky, and we'll take that.
Avalanche terrain, let's review that for people at home. What is avalanche terrain?
Avalanche terrain is any snow-covered slope that's steeper than 30 degrees, so not very steep.
Right.
So it's not based on size. People think it has to do with like, well, how big is the slope? No, little road cuts, little sledding hills, all that could be avalanche terrain in the right conditions. So we just want to prime ourselves to be looking at terrain with our kind of avalanche eyeballs on.
Yeah, and to get those avalanche eyeballs, training is really key.
Yeah, you need a little training, a little avalanche awareness, and we're running every week through November into December some free avalanche trainings. Some of it's online, some are in town, and so we encourage you to take one of those, and you can find out information on our website at mtavalanche.com. And now's the time.
Go do that. Yeah,
yes.
Absolutely, especially after last season. The other part is you guys have new beaker checkers. There's beacon stations that'll be opening up and things to look for.
There is. So we've got a few new beacon checker stations. That's so when you leave the car and you get to the trailhead, there's a little light show that says, oh, you have an avalanche transceiver on and it's working properly. And so we've got those are going to be going up in the next few weeks, and now's a good time for you to check your own personal gear. Make sure your airbag works if you carry that your shovel and your probe are in working order. All these are things you want to be doing if you're planning on getting an avalanche training.
And Doug Chabot, thank you very much from the Gallant National Forest Avalanche Center. Of course, we'll be checking in with you throughout the season. I appreciate your time, and of course, you want to stay safe in the backcountry.
Thanks, Matt.
It's very important, especially after last season. And talking to Doug, he said we've already got a couple of feet of snow in the mountains, and that's a little concerning if we're not adding to that, and that helps regulate that. So we'll be watching this very carefully.
Yeah, that if it doesn't change, then you put a bunch of fresh snow on it.
It becomes the weak layer.
Already, though, we're building the potential for a problem out there.
You can be prepared. And make sure that you stay safe. You're really in control.
My favorite part of that whole interview was when Doug talked about what avalanche terrain is. 30 degrees or more. Doesn't have to be a giant mountainside, doesn't have to be a giant canyon. 30-degree slope or more.
That's exactly right.
There you go. Good stuff there, Matt. Thank you for sharing that. 6:43, we're going to take a break.